A woman found a freezing German Shepherd pup in the snowstorm. What she did next brought everyone to tears. The wind howled like a wounded animal, lashing through the trees with a rage that seemed almost personal. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, turning the world into a frozen blur. The roads were empty. Homes were locked. Life had retreated indoors. But not everything had shelter, and not every soul had someone waiting for them. Lying beneath a bent pine tree, nearly swallowed by the snow, was a tiny German Shepherd pup. His small body trembled uncontrollably. His fur clumped with frost. Each breath was a struggle, shallow and weak, as if he was slowly slipping between this world and the next. His eyes barely opened, but when they did, they stared blankly into the storm, as though he'd already given up. Most people wouldn't have noticed him. Most would have driven by, windows closed, heaters on, hearts unaware. But Alina wasn't most people. She had no idea why she had taken the longer route home that night. She wasn't even supposed to be on that road. But something, an instinct, a whisper, made her turn. And just as she rounded a bend, her headlights caught a strange lump in the snow. Her heart stuttered. She slammed the brakes. Seconds later, she was out in the storm, coat flailing, boots sinking deep. Her breath came out in gasps as she reached the little body. Her hands shook, not from the cold, but from fear. He was so still, too still. No, 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 please, she whispered, as she dropped to her knees and wrapped the pup in her scarf, pulling him close to her chest. And in that moment, something inside her broke open, because she wasn't just holding a puppy. She was holding on to a promise she had made long ago, to never let someone slip away again. She didn't know it yet, but this tiny, freezing soul, abandoned and forgotten, would soon bring warmth back into a life that had long been cold. As Alina sat in the driver's seat, cradling the freezing pup against her chest, the storm outside raged with a fury that made everything feel surreal. Her hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she'd just done. Her heart pounded with panic. Was she already too late? She didn't wait for an answer. With one hand on the wheel and the other wrapped tightly around the tiny body bundled in her coat, she drove like her life depended on it. The nearest vet clinic was miles away, and every second felt like an eternity. The pup's breathing was faint, like a ticking clock winding down. Flashes of memory pulled at her, images she had buried for years. A winter 5 years ago, a tragedy she never talked about, a life she couldn't save. Maybe that's why tonight felt different. Maybe this wasn't just about a puppy. Maybe it was about redemption. The storm didn't slow down. Visibility dropped. Her wipers fought against the ice, and the road blurred. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not again. Inside the car, the heater blasted warm air. But it wasn't enough. She reached back and pulled a blanket from the rear seat, an old, tattered thing from her childhood, and wrapped it tighter around the pup. He was still shivering, but he blinked. Just once. Just enough. And that was all she needed. "Hang in there," she whispered. "You're not alone anymore." The vet clinic came into view like a lighthouse in a storm. Her tires screeched as she pulled into the lot, barely putting the car in park before bursting through the doors with the pup in her arms. Inside, under the harsh fluorescent lights, she was no longer just a woman saving a dog. She was a lifeline, a stranger who refused to look away. And in that moment, everything began to change. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and urgency. As Alina pushed through the glass doors, drenched from the snow and shaking from adrenaline, the receptionist barely had time to react before Alina cried out, "Please! He's not moving!" A vet tech rushed over. In one swift motion, the limp puppy was out of her arms and whisked into the back room. The doors slammed shut behind them, leaving Alina standing in silence, arms still frozen in the shape of holding him. Minutes passed like hours. She sat in the waiting room, soaked to the bone, her heart caught between hope and dread. Around her, people came and went. But for Alina, time had stopped. She stared at the puddle forming beneath her boots. She hadn't even realized she was crying. Then the vet walked in. A tall woman with kind eyes, holding a clipboard that didn't promise good news. "Alina, right?" she asked gently. She nodded. "We stabilized him for now. He's severely hypothermic, malnourished, and there's more. He's got bruising on his side. Some old, some recent. That pup has been through something. Something bad." Alina's breath caught. She looked up slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "You mean someone hurt him?" The vet didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We found something else. Something we didn't expect." She reached into her coat and handed Alina a small object sealed in a plastic bag. It was a collar, faded, dirty, nearly torn, but still intact. And on the inside, a name. But not the pup's. It was Alina's. She stared at it, completely frozen. "What? Is this some kind of mistake?" The vet looked at her, puzzled. "We traced the microchip. This pup was registered to you 3 years ago." Alina's world spun. But that couldn't be. She'd never owned a German shepherd. Or had she? Her hands began to tremble. Memory fragments burst like lightning. Shadows of a night she had buried. A call she never answered. A decision she never forgave herself for. And then, realization struck her like a thunderclap. This wasn't a stranger's dog. This was him. The one that had been taken. The one she was told didn't survive. Tears flooded her eyes. Her body folded forward as the weight of everything hit her at once. How had he found his way back? How had he survived alone, unloved, forgotten? And now, how could she possibly forgive herself? The dilemma wasn't just about whether she could keep him. It was about whether he could ever forgive her. But what Alina didn't know was this. The pup hadn't come back for punishment. He had come back for a reason far greater than either of them could understand. Not just to be saved, but to save. The days that followed felt like a blur of emotion, doctor's notes, and frantic prayers. Alina stayed by his side through it all. No longer a stranger to this pup, but someone determined to make up for lost time. Even though she had no idea how she could. Every day, she returned to the clinic with a growing sense of hope, but also the crushing weight of guilt. Was she too late? Would the trauma he'd endured be something he could ever forget? Or was she simply deluding herself, trying to fix something too broken to heal? But then, something changed. On the 4th day, as the snowstorm finally began to clear, Alina stood in front of the clinic's thick glass windows, watching the clouds part for the first time in what felt like forever. And then, a soft whimper interrupted her thoughts. She turned, her heart leaping to her throat. The pup was awake. His eyes, once clouded with pain and confusion, now blinked softly, as if realizing he wasn't alone. And there she was, the woman who couldn't believe what she was seeing, standing on the other side of his little hospital cage. "Hey there, you," she whispered, her voice cracking, as if afraid to speak too loudly in case this beautiful moment shattered. His eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time since she had found him, there was a flicker of recognition. No words were exchanged, but in that silent gaze the bond was forged. "Come here," Alina whispered, pulling a chair closer to his cage. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, until his front paws rested on the bars between them. Alina's breath hitched. "Don't you dare make me cry now." The vet, watching from the corner of the room, gave a knowing smile. "He's going to be okay, Alina. He's stronger than you think." But it wasn't just the pup who was healing. Alina had started to change too. Every visit to the clinic, every soft touch and whispered reassurance, was slowly melting away the wall she had built around her heart. For years, she'd been hiding from the guilt, from the past, from the voice that told her she wasn't good enough to save anyone. And yet, here he was, a living, breathing reminder that redemption wasn't just about what you'd done wrong. It was about what you could do right now. Over the following weeks, Alina spent every moment she could at the clinic, working alongside the staff. She helped with his care, his rehabilitation. She learned the struggles of a soul that had been broken and lost, and the resilience it took to keep going despite everything. He started eating on his own. His muscles slowly regained strength. His steps became steadier. And every time Alina reached out, whether it was to pet him or simply offer a kind word, he grew more comfortable. His eyes softened, no longer filled with fear or confusion. One day, as the clinic nurse gently removed the bandages from his ribs, Alina noticed something she hadn't expected. A scar, a large one, stretched across his side. It was an old injury, something that looked like it had been there for a long time. Her heart clenched as she gently traced it with her finger, unable to fight the lump in her throat. She could feel the weight of the pain he had carried, the hardship that had led him to her. A deep, instinctual understanding of what he'd been through was now dawning on her. He had suffered just like her, but they had both survived. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I'm so sorry you went through all of that." He lifted his head and nudged her hand with his nose. A small, quiet sign of forgiveness, of acceptance, of trust. Alina stood up slowly, stepping back. "No more running away," she whispered to herself, more than to him. "We're in this together now." The days seemed to blur into one long, exhausting battle for survival. Despite all the progress, despite all the hope, the pup's recovery had stalled. There were times when Alina would sit by his side, watching as he lay motionless, his breathing shallow. And despite the gentle encouragement from the vets, the truth was becoming harder to ignore. His body wasn't responding as it should. His ribs were healing, but he was still frail. He wasn't eating as much. His strength wasn't coming back in the way they had hoped. With every setback, Alina's heart sank deeper into fear, and the guilt, a shadow that never left her, grew stronger. The vet called Alina into the back room one night after a particularly troubling set of tests. She could see it in the vet's eyes before the words even came out. "We're running out of options," the vet said softly. "We've done everything we can. He's strong, but his body is struggling to hold on. We need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that we might lose him." Alina's breath hitched, her throat closing up as she tried to hold back the flood of tears. No, I won't accept that." Her voice was raw, filled with determination. "I can't lose him. Not again." She remembered the day she found him. She had felt the same helplessness when she thought he was lost to her forever. She wasn't about to give up. Not now. The following night, after the clinic had closed and the lights dimmed, Alina stayed behind. The storm had passed, but the cold still clung to the air. She stayed by the pup's side, talking to him in a low, calming voice. She knew he was fighting, but she didn't know if he had the strength to win. And neither did she. "Come on, buddy. You've made it this far," she whispered, gently rubbing his side. "We're not giving up now. You and me, we're a team." Her hands shook as she reached into her bag for the small vial of medicine the vet had given her. It was the last shot of antibiotics, the last treatment they hadn't yet tried. As she prepared to inject him, she hesitated. What if it was too late? What if nothing worked? But just as she was about to administer the dose, something extraordinary happened. The pup stirred. He lifted his head, weakly but noticeably, and his eyes met hers. There was no fear now, only a quiet, knowing trust. It was as though he had heard her, felt her presence, and in that moment he made a decision. The fight wasn't over yet. With trembling hands, Alina carefully administered the medicine, her heart racing. She leaned in, her forehead touching his as she whispered once more, "You've got this. We're in this together. You're not alone anymore." For hours, she sat by his side, watching him, never letting go. Slowly, his breathing grew steadier. His eyes stayed open, focused, as if he was telling her with a silent promise that he wasn't giving up. As the sun began to rise the next morning, Alina was still there. But this time, when she opened her eyes, she saw something that took her breath away. The pup was standing, shaky, exhausted, but standing on his own four paws. He took a tentative step forward, then another. His tail gave the faintest wag. Alina's heart exploded with emotion. She rushed to him, her tears falling freely as she gently cradled him in her arms. You did it, she whispered through her tears. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. The fight wasn't over. There was still more healing to be done, more challenges ahead. But in that moment, they had both won the most important battle, the fight to survive. And though Alina couldn't know it yet, this would not be the last time they would face the unimaginable together. The bond they shared was deeper than mere survival. It was a partnership forged in pain, in redemption, and in an unbreakable trust. The weeks that followed the night Alina stayed at the clinic were nothing short of a miracle. The pup, whom Alina had come to call Kai, had begun to show signs of life that Alina couldn't have imagined when she first found him. Slowly but surely, he was starting to heal, not just physically but emotionally too. Every day there was something new to celebrate. His tail wagged a little more every time Alina walked into the clinic. His eyes, once hollow with fear and pain, now shone with a quiet intelligence. He had learned to trust her completely. And Alina, she was changing too. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope flicker inside her. She had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something beautiful waiting for her at the end of this painful journey. It wasn't an easy path. There were setbacks, of course. Kai would get tired quickly, still needing frequent rest, and some days the pain in his limbs would flare up. But with every small victory, every step he took on his own, every time he ate a little more, every time he looked at her with those deep, soulful eyes, Alina felt the weight of her own fears lifting. One chilly afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Alina brought Kai outside for the first time in what felt like forever. The fresh air hit his face, and he paused for a moment, taking it in. He lifted his head, eyes wide with curiosity. It was as if the world had suddenly opened up to him in a way he hadn't experienced since he was a pup, lost in the snowstorm. Alina stood a few feet away, watching, her heart swelling in her chest. She hadn't realized until that moment just how much she had needed this. Not just for Kai, but for herself. "Go on," she whispered softly. "It's your world now too." At first, he hesitated. Then, with a small but determined step, he ventured forward, walking awkwardly but steadily. The snow crunched beneath his paws, each step leaving a small, fragile imprint in the ground, a symbol of how far he'd come. Alina couldn't hold back the tears. This moment was everything. This was the first sign of life, the first time she truly believed that Kai was going to be okay. But it wasn't just about his physical recovery. It was about rediscovering life itself for both of them. With each passing day, Kai became more playful. The timid pup who had once shrunk away from every noise now bounded around, tail wagging with excitement. He chased after the fluttering leaves, leaping and twisting in the air like a puppy who had never known anything but joy. And Alina, she found herself laughing again. A deep, belly laugh that she had long forgotten. She was no longer just a woman trying to save a dog. She was someone living alongside him, sharing in the magic of each new day. Their bond had grown stronger, deeper, than either of them could have ever anticipated. Where once there had been silence and fear, there was now laughter, comfort, and an unspoken understanding. She no longer saw him as a broken creature she needed to fix. She saw him as a companion, a friend, and a partner who had been through the very same struggles she had. One day, after a long walk through the fields, Alina sat on the porch steps, Kai curled up beside her. As she ran her hand through his soft fur, she felt a peace she had never known. "It's like we were meant to find each other," she murmured, more to herself than to him. And as if to answer her, Kai nuzzled his head against her hand, closing his eyes in contentment. They didn't need words anymore. The silence between them was filled with understanding, with love, and with the undeniable feeling that no matter what happened next, they had both found their home. The next few weeks were filled with small, beautiful moments that shaped the new life Alina and Kai were building together. The bond between them deepened in ways that were beyond words, each day reinforcing the powerful connection they shared. The world outside was still unpredictable, but for Alina and Kai, each day was an opportunity to heal, to grow stronger, and to rediscover joy. The first full run, one crisp morning, As the sun broke through the lingering fog, Alina and Kai set off for their first real adventure outside the confines of the clinic. Kai's steps were still careful at first, his legs strong but his gait a bit uneven. But as the breeze brushed past him, something changed. There was a spark in his eyes, a glint of confidence that hadn't been there before. With a sudden burst of energy, Kai took off running, his paws kicking up the earth as he dashed ahead, the pure joy of freedom flooding his every movement. Alina's heart swelled with pride and relief as she watched him run, his tail high and his movements fluid. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was living. She joined him, her feet following his quick pace as they ran side by side, the world around them seeming to fade away. The sound of their laughter and the rhythmic pounding of their feet filled the air, a symphony of life and hope. For the first time since they had met, it felt like everything was falling into place. The quiet moments. But it wasn't just the high-energy moments that defined their bond. The quiet ones were just as precious. In the evenings, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple and the stars began to peek through, Alina would sit on the porch with Kai nestled beside her. The warmth of his body against hers, the soft rise and fall of his breathing, was a constant comfort in her life. Sometimes they wouldn't speak at all. Alina would simply run her fingers through his fur, feeling the connection that had grown between them over time. It was a bond born from pain, from struggle, but now it was one of pure, unspoken love. Learning new tricks. Kai's recovery was evident in the way he eagerly embraced the new challenges Alina set before him. With gentle encouragement, she taught him basic commands. Sit, stay, roll over. At first, he struggled, his body still not fully recovered. But with each passing day, his movements grew more confident. He learned quickly, his bright eyes focused on Alina's every word, his tail wagging furiously when he got it right. One afternoon, as they worked on a particularly tricky trick, Alina clapped her hands in excitement. "Good boy, Kai!" she cheered, her voice full of pride. The pup's face lit up in sheer joy, and he jumped into her arms, licking her face with unrestrained happiness. A companion for life. As the days turned into weeks, Alina realized that she wasn't just healing a dog. She was healing herself. The loneliness and pain she had carried for so long were melting away, replaced by the companionship of a creature who understood her in ways no one else could. Kai had become more than a rescue. He was her partner, her protector, and her friend. The love they shared wasn't something she had expected to find in the wake of the storm. But in a world filled with uncertainty and darkness, Kai had become her light, her constant reminder that sometimes the most unexpected of bonds can change everything. As they spent more time together, Alina's confidence in herself and in their future grew. With Kai by her side, she no longer felt afraid of the unknown. They would face whatever came next together. The milestone moments. One morning, after a long walk through the fields, Alina stood on the edge of a hill, watching the sun rise. Kai sat beside her, his body at ease, his eyes focused on the horizon. It was then that Alina realized how far they had come. From the day she found him, frozen and broken, to this moment, Kai was no longer just a puppy fighting to survive. He was her family. They had found each other when the world had seemed cold and unforgiving. And now, together, they were creating a new world. A world full of promise, hope, and the unbreakable bond of love. In those quiet moments, Alina smiled to herself, knowing that no matter what the future held, she and Kai would face it side by side. Just when Alina and Kai's life seemed to have settled into a rhythm of hope and healing, the world threw a curveball. It was a crisp autumn morning when Alina received a phone call that would change everything. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the number on the screen. The local animal shelter. The voice on the other end was calm, but there was an underlying tension she couldn't ignore. "Alina, I'm afraid there's been a mix-up," the woman said. "You see, we've had a few reports of a missing dog in the area. A German Shepherd, similar to Kai, was reported as lost about a month ago. We've tracked its microchip, and it matches." Alina's mind raced, a million thoughts crashing together. Could it be? The very idea that Kai, her Kai, could have been someone else's dog, lost and displaced, sent a wave of shock and confusion through her. She had never considered the possibility that his life before her might have been more complicated than just a stray in need of saving. But the realization hit her hard. Was it possible that Kai wasn't really a stray? Was he someone's beloved dog who had been separated from them in the storm? The thought of losing him after everything they had been through together, after the bond they had built, was unbearable. Alina's voice shook as she asked, "Do you have any more details about the owner? Is there a chance we can meet them?" The shelter worker paused for a moment before responding. "We've tracked down the owner's information. Their address is in the city, about an hour away. But, Alina, there's something you need to know. The owner never came forward when the dog went missing, and their situation is complicated. We're not sure how this will turn out." Alina couldn't breathe. The weight of the situation pressed down on her. What was the right thing to do? Had she truly given Kai the love and home he deserved, or was she standing in the way of his rightful family's reunion? The very thought of letting go of the dog she had fought so hard to save felt impossible. Yet deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore the truth. Her head swirled with doubt, torn between the life they had built together and the responsibility she felt for what might be his true family. She stood up, pacing back and forth. Was it time to face the reality that she might have to say goodbye to Kai? With trembling hands, Alina pulled out her keys and set them down on the kitchen counter. The decision felt crushing. She didn't want to lose him, but she had always known that true love meant putting the other's needs first, even if it hurt. "I'll go," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'll meet them, and I'll make the right choice for you, Kai." As Alina approached the home of the missing dog's family, her heart raced. The drive had been a blur, each mile dragging her further into the uncertainty of what awaited her. The questions were endless, her mind replaying every moment with Kai. The way he had looked at her when she found him, how they had become each other's rock. Could she really let go of him? Was this what he needed? Or had their paths crossed for a reason beyond just rescue? She pulled into the driveway of a modest home on the outskirts of town, its quiet atmosphere in stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions inside her. The door opened before she could even knock, and standing in front of her was a man who looked just as torn as she felt. He was older, his face worn with time, his eyes searching her own as if trying to make sense of the situation. "You must be Alina," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm Jack. Thank you for coming." The name felt strangely familiar to her, but Alina couldn't place it. She had no time for questions, only the weight of the decision that loomed ahead. I think this is your dog," she said, her words hesitant, almost afraid of the answer. "But I need to know something first. Kai, this dog, his story is... his past is complicated. He's been through so much. I just need to understand. Did you want him back?" Jack's expression faltered, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to thicken. He stepped aside, motioning for Alina to come inside. "Please, come in." Inside the house, Alina was hit with an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. The scent of warmth and home surrounded her, but there was something about the atmosphere that didn't sit right. As they sat in the living room, Jack began to tell his story. The dog, Kai, had been his companion for years, but life had taken a devastating turn. Jack's wife had passed away a year ago, and since then, the weight of grief had slowly stripped him of his ability to care for the world around him. One fateful day, in the chaos of the storm, Kai had run off after a neighbor's cat. When Jack had searched, he could find no trace of him. "I didn't think I could care anymore," Jack admitted, his voice breaking. "After losing Mary, I wasn't the same. I didn't search as hard as I should have. I didn't know how to. But Kai, he was everything to me. He wasn't just a dog. He was a reminder of what I had, what I lost." Alina listened intently, her heart aching for Jack. His pain mirrored her own. Kai had been a part of his healing once, and now, in his absence, Jack was adrift. It was then that Alina realized the truth. Kai wasn't just her rescue anymore. Kai had rescued her, too. He had brought her back from a place of loneliness and fear, just as she had given him a second chance. Their bond wasn't just about saving each other. It was about healing together. And though part of her wanted to keep him for herself, she knew that the right thing to do was to let Kai complete his own journey. I think he belongs with you, Alina said, her voice trembling. She paused, her heart full of love and sadness. But I hope you understand, he's a different dog now. You may have lost him once, but you're not getting the same Kai back. He's stronger. He's been through something and he's changed. He's not just your dog anymore. He's his own. Jack's eyes welled with tears, and for a moment, the room was still. Alina could see the deep sorrow in his gaze, but also a flicker of something else, a glimmer of hope. He wasn't just asking for his dog back. He was asking for redemption, for a second chance with the companion he had lost. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. And then, Jack did something unexpected. He reached out and took Alina's hands in his. "You've given him back to me, Alina," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "But I can see now that he's not just mine anymore. He's part of both of us. And I won't ever forget that." At that moment, Alina felt a shift in her own heart. She realized that their paths were no longer about ownership. They were about shared love and shared healing. Kai had brought them together for a reason. He had become not just a part of Alina's life, but also a part of Jack's healing journey. And in return, Alina had given both of them the strength to move forward. Kai walked over to Alina, his tail wagging as he nuzzled her leg. For a brief moment, he stood between them, his eyes looking up at both his rescuers, the people who had loved him at different times in his life. Then, in a beautiful, almost symbolic gesture, Kai turned and walked back to Jack, resting his head on his knee. It was a quiet, but profound, full-circle moment. Alina had given him back to Jack, but, in return, she had received something priceless. The knowledge that true love isn't about keeping something for yourself. It's about knowing when to let go, and trusting that the love you gave will always remain. With a final emotional glance at Kai, Alina stepped back, her heart swelling with pride. They had both healed. They had both grown. And, in the end, they would both be okay. As she walked back to her car, Alina realized that her life, and Kai's, would never be the same again. The bond they shared would live on, not as an obligation, but as a beautiful reminder of the power of love and selflessness. As Alina drove away from Jack's house, her heart felt lighter than it had in months. The storm had passed, not just in the world outside, but in her own life as well. The uncertainty, the doubt, the worry, they were all gone. In their place was a sense of peace and, for the first time in a long while, a deep belief that sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. Kai's journey, and her own, had come full circle. It wasn't the ending she had imagined, but it was the one that felt right. Jack had been given a second chance with the dog he had lost. And in doing so, Alina had found a new sense of purpose, a sense of hope that she would carry with her forever. As she drove back home, the sun set behind the mountains, casting a golden hue across the sky. Life had a way of surprising you, she thought. Just when you least expected it, a storm would come. But after the storm, there would always be a moment of calm, a new beginning. And that's exactly what this moment felt like. A new chapter for both Alina and Kai, and for Jack as well. If this story has touched your heart, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a bond with an animal that changed your life? Or maybe you've had to make a difficult decision for the ones you love. Leave us a comment below and share your story. We believe in the power of love, sacrifice, and healing, and your words could be the inspiration someone else needs today. And if this story moved you, please like and share it with your friends. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one act of kindness to change everything. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Remember, life's greatest stories are written with love and heart. Be a part of our community, where we celebrate those who make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. Until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and keep sharing your love with the world. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go.